Holy, oi boys, welcome to another video on the channel. We are here to recap the round that was round 5. We say it every week, but this was truly another banger of a round. I'd say the best round of the season so far. I mean, it's up there for sure. It's definitely the best start to a season I've seen. There was some bloody good footy being played, and Sunday football.
That was off its head.
Let's go through them. So for the first game of the round, the Parramatta Eels are defeated by the Sydney Roosters at Allianz Stadium, 28 points to 20. A valiant effort by Parramatta. Without their main enforcer, we took the Roosters in this one, 1-12, and that is what we got. The game itself, coming into the match, I questioned whether we'd see a more fluid attack from the Roosters, and the spine actually looked good, minus James Tedesco, who got concussed early. Dan Dubois had a monster game, ran for 236 meters, only 22 of those kick return meters, 56 of those being post-contact meters as well, and sprinkle in 2 line breaks on top of that. That tells you how vital he was to their go forward. But yeah, overall, definitely a lot smoother than what we've seen from the Roosters in the past in terms of attack. As for Parramatta, the X-Factor list, Clint Gutherson I thought was their best player, and a close second, Dylan Brown, man. Dylan Brown did all he could do, but I feel was let down by his side of the field because he was created heaps of little half chances, but again, the men around him just weren't hip to what Brown was up to. That is the side for Parramatta that gets heavily criticized. It doesn't help that he's missing his main man in Sean Lane when it comes to creating down that left edge. The first of the Friday doubleheader saw the Penrith Panthers drop 53 on the Raiders in Canberra. We took the Panthers 13+ in this, and I thought it would see like a beating that we saw last year. To the Raiders' credits, they did head into the break down by 7 points, but like we said about Penrith, they love this Canberra playstyle, and in a battle of who will fold first, they typically outlast their opposition. And before you mention Parramatta, need I remind you about the games that quote-unquote mattered? As for standouts, I thought Cleary, his kicking game and decision making was pretty on point and kept them ahead when the game wasn't the balance. Real quick, Brian To'o, I wouldn't say back to his damaging best, but he did. That's crazy to say because he did run for 235 meters, 14 of those being kick return meters, and 97 of those were post-contact. That is insane. 8 tackle breaks as well. Massive shout out to Bizza for that performance, and a massive shout out to Jermaine Salmon crossing the line right before the fat lady started humming, saluting all the weak-gutted dog persons who had him on their slips. Nah, but all joking aside, starting this week we're gonna do like a little try scoring prediction. We'll try and predict the try scorer for each game, and we'll call it OddSquad's Bakery. The headliner for Friday, the Melbourne Storm get up against the South Sydney Rabbitohs at Accor Stadium. The full-time score, 18 points to 10. I took the Bunnies. I thought they'd get up at home, and I thought that overall they'd be the more polished looking unit, but Melbourne surprised me, I'm not gonna lie. Don't get me wrong, their defense is still shocking, but Cam Munster was the glue that held them together. Overall, the Storm did a better job getting a grip on the game. Their kicking game, from their spine in particular, wasn't like anything to rage about, but they got the job done. Harry Grant as well. I said Munster's the glue, but it's both of them. Without either one of those boys, the Storm would be in dire straits. Now for Super Saturday, we saw the first draw since 2020 between the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles and the Newcastle Knights. Now we're going to hold the L on this. I did predict Manly to get by in a close one. This game was one of many that I was struggling to hop off the fence for. I thought the Knights were steadily improving, and I thought the class of players like DCE, Tom Turbo would nudge them over the line, but yeah, it wasn't to be. We get a draw, we hold the L. Dom Young bounces back in the best way possible, bagging 4 meat pies. On the other side, Haumole Olakau'atu, somewhat of a mixed bag, but he continues to march towards that Blues debut. I'd probably go as far as to say he's hands down the best back rower running around at the moment, with the most in form. For game 2, we had the Dragons absolutely toweling up a depleted Dolphins team at home. Now I picked the upsets, and me being a hindsight Harry, I'm kicking myself. Off roster alone, I should have went with the Dragons. Based on previous performances though, the Dragons fading late against the Broncos and fading even earlier last week convinced me to go with the Wayne Bennett coached team of battlers who have been grinding out wins these past few weeks. They did lose yet another half in Anthony Milford, and to be honest, I think even with Milf in, the same outcome would have happened. Now on the back of an absolutely dominating forward pack, we know what Hunt is capable of, and we saw the prototypical performance from Ben Hunt. What stood out to me was the performances from the rest of the spine. Jacob Little choosing his moments perfectly during that match. When to run, when to deliver quick service. Tyrell Sloan, he was seemingly everywhere on the field, came up with a couple of try savers, and how good was that little foot race we got, a little taste of the hammer versus Sloan. And of course, Talatau Omone. He was causing all sorts of headaches down that left edge with his short kicking game. Granted, he didn't make the right choice every time, but for the most part, he had that right edge of the Dolphins under the pump. But yes, St. George, they're a confidence team. When they're up, they're hard to stop, and when they're down, you'll get performances like rounds 3 and 4. In the main event, we saw the contrast between the best and worst teams in the league. The Brisbane Broncos dropped 46 on a directionless West Tigers. Payne Haas, who I like to call the lead horse, dominated that Tigers pack, and I've been seeing people trying to downplay their performance, saying it's the West Tigers, like they've got a bunch of reserves playing in that forward pack, but don't get it misconstrued. They have a bloody stacked engine room. We're talking Clemmer, Kuroisau, Utoika Manu, although I think it was Fonua Pole or was it Matamua that was starting. It's irrelevant. Haas ran wild on them in that first half. I know the scoreline was big, but again, performance-wise, the Broncos, there's still some errors in their game. Speaking of errors, Selwyn Cobbo, no errors. We love to see that. Ran for over 200 meters. The class and finishing ability of Reece Walsh shines bright again. 2 line breaks, 2 line break assists, 3 try assists, 6 tackle breaks. Defense is still a little wishy-washy, but for the most part, he plays a big part to the Broncos' recent success. As for the Tigers, we're now approaching the 6th round of the competition, and we've seen 0 improvement. It's time to make some serious changes, and that's something to do with that think tank, because at the moment there's just no direction. Literally 0 chemistry in this team. It's a rough watch, let's be honest. It's been a rough watch seeing a team with high quality players playing so poorly. Has the quote-unquote genius lost his touch? Or do they need to make key changes to their spine? The thing with that is, I know a lot of people will come for Luke Brooks' neck. I might get heat for this, but I don't think he played that bad. Nor do I think was he the worst in the team. Right now he's an easy target. They were playing him, he was wearing the 7, but he was playing on the left side of the field, so he did plenty of running. That's crazy. They're struggling for a genuine shot caller, and then you look at the guys they got rid of, Jock Madden, an up-and-comer, and bloody Jacko Hastings, who they tried to move to lock. That right there is some poor decision making by the coaching staff. There's a disconnect there in the Tigers. I'm really keen to see how they will address this. And now we have one of the best Sunday football sessions I've seen for quite some time. First up, the New Zealand Warriors. They beat the Sharks at Shark Park. My pick for this game, another one that I was on the fence with, but I leaned towards the Cronulla Sharks to get it done at home, and it was looking like a thrashing was on the cards. To sum up the game, I think Sean Johnson said it best.
That was off its head.
So the Sharks start hot from the jump. They scored off an early error by the Waz, and a drownage of points ensued. Now at this point, the group chats I'm in were writing the Warriors off, saying stuff like 60 points incoming and all that. But if you paid attention to the Warriors, for me at least, despite conceding 20 points early and the Sharks having all the ball, I will say the Warriors showed resolve, something I've never seen from them, I think ever. On top of that, whenever they had looks at the line, they were threatening. When they get going and find their groove, even without a vital piece like Tamaite Martin, their attack just flows. It's crazy because stats wise, only 4 of their players ran for over 100 meters. It's a testament to just how in sync they are. Now that could be a little oxymoronic. How can they be that in sync when they did let in 30 points? I'm more so talking about their style of play in offense. In terms of standouts, the self-proclaimed, I think it's Bullet Brothers, Jazz Tavanga, Dylan Walker, so good. Tavanga starting for Tohu Harris, 156 run meters, 58 post contact, the smallest prop on the field. He was hanging in there with the Monstars in that Sharks forward pack. And I've been saying this every week, their recruits, they continue to show up. SJ is seemingly back to his best, and Chance Nickel Klukster, like we've said in the past, they're one of the more well-balanced sides in the league. A little interesting battle I was enjoying was the battle between Edward Gossi and Ronaldo Mulitalo. You know, Mulitalo brings that energy. He always draws the line between him and his opponent and dares his opposition to cross it. I absolutely love that about his game. It makes for super entertaining head-to-heads, and we got that today with Edward Gossi ultimately getting the last laugh with his side picking up the win. On the Sharks side of things, their defense has been a bit of an issue even since last year, you know. I've got the player stats up right now, and you have 11 players there running for over 100 meters. Their back 5 all clocked in at close to 150. Jesse Ramian 208 with 76 post contact. Their attack, you could say, is up there with one of the smoothest in the league. They are ambidextrous, but their defense has always been questionable. They missed 41 to the Warriors 26. Keep in mind that the Warriors had a man in the bin too to start the second half. I asked a couple of weeks ago if they were legit. This was the game to sort of pop their chest out a bit and just let the league know what type of time they're on this season. It's demon time. In the trenches, they were turning up for each other. It was truly an against the grain type of win. The coach probably won't take much credit, but it does show how well advised they are this season. For them to push through that early onslaught and eventually come out on top, golden point extra time, was truly special. But yeah, massive props to the Wires, the players. They're cooking up something nice. Shout out to not only their coaching staff, but the whole crew working behind the scenes, because you can definitely tell the vibes are up, and their sort of redemption arc this season has been one of the most enjoyable ones to watch, especially after the sacrifices they made to keep the game running a couple of years ago. And finally, the cherry on top of what was an amazing weekend of matches, the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs defeat the North Queensland Cowboys 15 points to 14 at Accor Stadium. Tipping wise, I did lean towards the Cowboys, another one of those on the fence type games. Whenever we talk about the Bulldogs, we do talk about certain playstyles, and that they have one of the more exciting playstyles in the league. It was on display today as well. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but they play footy. I kind of thought the Cowboys would get into their structures and grind out a win. They almost did, to be fair. But the diversity in attack, the I guess X factor of certain players in the Bulldogs is what helped get them over the line. Few standouts for the Bulldogs. Reed Mahoney, I thought, is doing such a good job directing this team around the park. Jacob Preston, didn't know anything about this kid coming into the 2023 season, and he's slowly becoming one of my favorite players to watch. Paul Alamotti coming up against a hard-nosed veteran in Peta Hiku. And some could say he somewhat bested the old dog. He came up with such a clutch pass at the death as well. It was almost video game like, the speed of the catch and pass to put Fox away in the corner. Matt Burton. First of all, the sequence to the drop kick and the drop kick itself was actually insane. The chip to the Fox chipping it back. They somehow end up with the ball still, and Burton scrambling slots one from almost 40 meters out, not to mention it was off center. It was such a clutch kick. People are quick to say that it's better than Cleary's kick last week, but there's a fair bit of recency bias in that and a bit of hyperbole, for the simple fact that if you look at what's on the line, if Cleary misses, it's game over. If Burton misses, they get another stanza of extra time. But yeah, anyway, a bloody good win from the Bulldogs. They were dropping like flies as well. Fatala Mariner off early and gone for the rest of the game. A collision between Preston left his... Now, I'm not too sure what happened to his finger. I think it may be broken. But yeah, it was the collision with Max King who almost lost an eye. The Dogs are up against it. As for the Cowboys, I thought Tom Chester did a decent job filling in for Scott Drinkwater. They'll be loving having Scott Drinkwater back next week. I thought Dearden, Lukey and Griffith Neem all had good games as well. But the real difference between the two was the lack of a genuine game breaker. The Dogs have that in a Matt Burton. He proves it in this performance, putting his nuts on the line, making some big plays, and it made for some hectic entertainment. We're gonna wrap it up there. That's my thoughts on the round that was. I'll be back in a couple days for our tipping video, but until then, if you did enjoy that, be sure to run a shit at that like button and bring on round 6.